Just to prove that I'm the oldest person in this room, I use paper, which is kind of totally contradictory to what I'm going to talk about. So happy to be here, dear friends, and to have this opportunity to toss ideas with you all. And I really hope that during these 3 days, we will come up with some good solutions, good ideas on how to promote and put sustainable journalism in practice, because that's the whole idea of the conference. And I know that you are all now just wondering one thing. Who's that little girl? It's my granddaughter, Ro. And Ro is a very uncommon Swedish name. It means peace of mind. And I think that this conference is very much about Ro, about your children, your grandchildren, or your children to be born, and that they will have a good life and a good world to live in, and that they also will have access to good journalism. So this is what is in my mind all the time. This is why I engage so much in sustainable journalism. I'm a journalist, reporter, or I used to be, I say. I kind of lost my touch. Now I'm more like a bureaucrat. But I tell you a story. When I was a reporter, in the 90s, I did a lot of stories from South Africa, portraying people's dreams and fears when they imagined a South Africa without apartheid. And I'll tell you a strange story. I was on my way from Johannesburg to Durban. I was approaching Durban, kind of didn't know where I was. But I took an exit by random, and I see a sign there that says English pub. Obviously a posh area, obviously white posh area. So I follow the sign, and I see this copy of a English stone mansion, small stone mansion, English pub. And I walk in, and suddenly I'm no longer in South Africa. I'm in the south of England. And it's autumn, because everyone are wearing thick sweaters. There's a fireplace with a fire, and there's a bar, and by the bar stands an incredible person. He is wearing a military uniform that must be from the 40s, from probably the Second World War. I don't know, looks extremely old. And I call him the major. I decided to call him this guy the major. The major is in control of this place. He's standing by the bar like this. He's no longer in control of the British Empire. Maybe he was at one time. He's no longer in control of South Africa, but he's definitely in control of this pub. So one of the guys in the thick sweaters rises up and goes up to the major. I'm there like invisible. Everybody's aware that I'm there. I'm probably the first foreigner to be in that pub for the last 10 years or something. But so the show starts. This guy in the thick sweater goes up to the major, and he asks, "What do you think about the state of the nation?" And the major answers, "Would you fancy a beer?" Why am I telling this story? Why am I telling this story? Because I find many times today, it's like I'm in a weird dream, or look at a strange theater play, and everything is unreal somehow. And I think it's much due to our inability to deal with the changes that are necessary. And I think just just like the major, and I really hope that I will not end up like the old major, knowing that there are profound changes happening, but not really willing or capable of making the action and change that are necessary. So I think there are a lot of similarities in this case. And I think many of us, I must admit, I mean, listening to Dinesh's definition of sustainable journalism, I must admit that I find it very frustrating that a lot of people in the media industry still defines sustainability as stable profit over time, because that is what I find. I mean, wherever I go, and I travel a lot, and actually even in Sweden to a certain extent. Maybe it's because we don't want to think about our product, and our product is news, content. Maybe we don't want to think about it as a product that actually influences sustainability of society, but it definitely does, for good or for bad. And we will hear, I think, from Alexandra Brochard, for example, on Saturday. I hope you will be able to listen to her. More and more research coming out where you see that there's a lot of journalism that is good for democracy and for sustainable society. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of journalism that is counterproductive to sustainable and democratic societies. So it's really, as both Nancy and Dinesh said, it's a time to rethink. It's a time just like when South Africa was leaving apartheid behind. It's a time to rethink and to form new kind of journalism with a new kind of thinking. And I think that Kenya has abilities to set a good example. You did it with M-Pesa. I still must say, when I got a letter from my bank, some years ago, and say, we now have mobile banking. And that was 5 years after M-Pesa. And I think that Kenya is really on a good track and had good opportunities. So business as usual is not an option. Journalism business isn't what it used to be. But let us look at that as a possibility. The age of gatekeeping is over. People are empowered to build media startups right from their phones, doing research, collaboration, and distribution, and monetizing it. But for many of us, we're still trying to force fit old media concepts into new digital formats, and it doesn't work. And we know it doesn't work, just like the major. We know it doesn't work, but we keep believing in it. This has led to decline, utility, relevance, trust, and most of all, revenues. We all know that if we don't find new and innovative ways of making money on news or content, we'll be out of business. And if we don't think about how we can contribute to sustainable societies where our grandchildren can have a good life, there will be no one to buy our product, no one to read, listen, to watch the stories we publish. No civilized society, and perhaps not even a livable planet. So it's not like we have an option. We have to do this. We have to do this, just as apartheid needed to be abolished. So what is sustainable journalism? Well, the beauty with this concept is you can hear a lot of different versions within the framework. I think we've heard some very nice versions today from Nancy and Dinesh. So what is sustainable journalism in practice? Well, to make it really simple, I would just like to say that it's about, regardless of what your position is, what your role is in your organization, regardless of what your organization is, just ask yourself 2 questions. Does what I'm planning to do contribute to the sustainability of my organizations? That's the first question. The second question is, does what I'm planning to do contribute to the sustainability of my society? So it's as easy as that. If we all start to ask those two questions whenever we're about to plan something, then we are on track. If your answer is no, then you should do something else. If the answer is yes, then you should excel in what you plan to do. That's my simple version of sustainable journalism in practice. I think of us, all of us, like we're drifting in the information flow, like a river. We're all floating in this river. Some of us are sinking, unfortunately. And I see there are like three streams in this river. There's one polluted stream with black, stinking water that is disinformation. And there's one gray stream full of junk. That's all the junk news that the news industry produce. That could be even counterproductive to journalism, and is closely related to the stinking disinformation stream. You know that Steve Bannon, you all know him, he said, fill the zone with shit. That was his strategy. And he was so successful that Donald Trump was elected president in 2016. And the British people voted for Brexit. So you can do a lot in that water. Now there's a small stream where I think we all want to belong, with clean water and clean fresh water. And that is the stream of sustainable journalism. And I think our mission here today during these 3 days, and I hope for the rest of our lives, I may not have that long to live, but I will want to stay in that stream of clean water. But to be able to do that, we need to rethink our business models. We need to rethink our customer relations, our content, and even journalism's role in society. I hope that during this conference, we will be able to develop not only, as in so many conferences, an empty statement where we urge people in power to cater for freedom of expression and blah, blah, blah. But I want this to be an action-oriented conference. So my hope that by the end, by lunch on Saturday, we should have at least 5 doable action points where we agree together, this is how we put things forward. And the decision should not be, let's have another conference. That is not allowed, but doable. How can we promote education, research, content production, business models, environmental safe production and distribution, and not least representation in the newsroom, in the organization, gender balance and inclusion. Because I believe as journalists, we can play a decisive role in turning things right. During the last years, I have met so many editors, reporters, and researchers that are spirited by the need for sustainable journalism. And I can feel how this is now turning into a strong global moment. We started the Sustainable Journalism Partnership just 9 months ago. We already have 300 members, senior researchers, media leaders, senior reporters from 63 different countries. And we haven't even started marketing yet. So no doubt there is a lot of interest. There's also a lot of resistance. We know that. But most of all, I think there's a lot of, how are we going to do this? And I think that we're all in this situation. That's me included. How can we put this into practice? That is the biggest challenge. We can all agree on that. Yes, we need new business models. But what are those new business models? That is what we need to discuss during these days and come to some conclusions and some practical idea. So I hope that one day when you get as old as I am, we'll sit together on the banks of the information flow river, and we look at our children and grandchildren when they play in the clean water, and we can say, I contributed to this because I practiced sustainable journalism. Thank you.